What's going on, everybody? It's your boy, the Puertorican conservative, and as everybody knows, because everybody's been circulating the video, they found a whole bunch of supplies in Puerto Rico just laying around, distributed amongst 11 different warehouses, where they found food supplies, water supplies, electrical supplies, containers for people to fill up with water, etc., etc. So the question basically is, how the hell did all of this food and all of this supply and help that was sent to Puerto Rico, how did it end up in 11 different warehouses in Puerto Rico and not distributed to the people of Puerto Rico? And the answer, as everybody knows, is pretty simple. All we have to do is look at the political the political environment of 2016, 2017. At that time, as everybody knows, after Hurricane Maria, the Democrats recruited one of their own from Puerto Rico, known as Mayor Carmen Yulín Cruz, who is the mayor of San Juan in Puerto Rico. Immediately after Hurricane Maria struck Puerto Rico, it was Mayor Carmen Yulín Cruz who became the poster child for the smear campaign that was launched against Donald Trump, against Republicans and conservatives from Puerto Rico. That's when I came out with the video that I came out with exposing Puerto Rico, and my video went viral. PJ Media picked it up, etc., etc. But the same facts remain true today, and that is that in 2017, when Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico, Donald Trump did send hurricane relief help to Puerto Rico, but because of two factors, the supplies never reached Puerto Rico. Factor number one is that when the hurricane, which was a Category 5, struck Puerto Rico, it destroyed most of Puerto Rico's roads, bridges, etc., etc. Factor number two is that there was already a campaign in Puerto Rico to make sure that the supplies that are being sent by Donald Trump from the United States of America to Puerto Rico never reached the people of Puerto Rico, understanding that the hurricane had already displaced thousands of people in Puerto Rico. Now, why would the mayor or politicians in Puerto Rico intentionally prevent essential supplies from reaching the people of Puerto Rico? Well, because they knew that these people who had been displaced and were homeless due to Hurricane Maria had nowhere to go. So where do you think they were going to go? They were going to come to the United States of America. Since they already knew this, they had already set up a couple of outreach centers specifically designed for the disaster that had affected Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico. One was set up in Pennsylvania, and the other was set up in Florida. How did they know that Puerto Ricans were going to go to Florida and Pennsylvania? Well, they didn't. Democrats created a system of funneling Puerto Ricans from Puerto Rico directly either to Pennsylvania or to Florida through outreach programs that then encouraged them or advised them to go to either one of these two states. Now, when you think about why, you have to think about numbers. Take into account that in 2016, two of the states that Donald Trump won by very, very little, almost less than 1% voting advantage, was Florida, which he won by 0.4% vote advantage, approximately 114,000 votes. You guys can go ahead and look this up. And in Pennsylvania, where Donald Trump won by only 46,000 votes. So then when you understand the numbers that were very small in both Florida and Pennsylvania for Donald Trump, then you can understand why the Democrats set up outreach programs in Puerto Rico that created chapters over here in two states only, Florida and Pennsylvania, so that through it, they can channel the people in Puerto Rico that were displaced because of Hurricane Maria and send them to both Florida and Pennsylvania. Now, in case you think that my theory is flawed in any way, I want you guys to calculate this. In 2017, before Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico, there were only 380,000 Puerto Ricans in Florida. After Hurricane Maria struck Puerto Rico, there are now 1 million plus Puerto Ricans in Florida, which means that the population of Puerto Ricans grew from 380,000 three times to 1 million in less than 2 years since Hurricane Maria struck Puerto Rico. Also, and remember, and these numbers are important because Donald Trump won Florida by only 114,000 votes. Also, these numbers are important because according to TheHill.com, according to Channel 7, and according to The Blaze, Puerto Ricans were the reason Rick Scott won the Senate seat in Florida and the reason Ron DeSantis won the governorship in Florida, because Puerto Ricans are concentrated in Central Florida, and it was from Central Florida where both of them got the 10,000 point advantage that they needed to beat their opponents. So understanding that everything ended up backfiring, we still have to understand with the intention that things were done. How is it possible that 2 years after Donald Trump sent hurricane relief efforts to Puerto Rico to send them water, to send them food, to send them electrical working stuff and generators and such, why is it that only 2 years later we discover that they're still sitting in 11 different warehouses throughout Puerto Rico? Why didn't we discover this months after Hurricane Maria? And that is the important question. And you know what is the answer? Because ultimately, conclusively, it was a government-sponsored smear campaign against Donald Trump to portray him as the devil that doesn't want to help the people of Puerto Rico. So the only way that they can make this portrayal reality is by hiding the help that Donald Trump was sending to the people of Puerto Rico. Why then was it now discovered? Well, let me see. Since December 2019 till now, which is only a month later, there's been almost 950 earthquakes. According to USA Today, more than 950 small earthquakes in Puerto Rico, and about a dozen major ones between Category 4 and Category 6.6. This ended up collapsing many structures in Puerto Rico and destroying a lot of buildings that were remote and were not being maintained. Guess what happened? Because of the earthquakes, a few of the buildings were being inspected. They opened it up and they found all of the supplies. Do you really believe that this is a question of whether or not somebody mismanaged the supplies that were sent to the people of Puerto Rico? No. The people of Puerto Rico are fully aware that this was an intentional sabotaging of hurricane or disaster relief. So because they know this, now you have Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico demanding the resignation of almost every top political official, including the newly appointed governor, Wanda Vasquez. And you got to ask yourself, why are they asking for Wanda Vasquez to resign? Well, because Wanda Vasquez was Chief of Justice before she was assigned as governor, because she was already being investigated in 2017 due to corruptions. So the people of Puerto Rico already knew that she was part of the narrative that was being pushed since 2017 against Donald Trump. The problem here is this. People in Puerto Rico don't care about the narrative that's being pushed in Puerto Rico against or in favor of any politician. But when the political games that are being played by the left and the right affect Puerto Ricans, take into account that according to the Puerto Rican government, 1,000 something people died, right? So think about how many lives could have been saved if these supplies would have reached the people of Puerto Rico, if the generators would have reached the people of Puerto Rico, if the containers where they would have been able to put water would have reached the people of Puerto Rico, imagine how many lives would have been saved. So that's what the people of Puerto Rico are looking at. And this is why now, today, you can go on the news and you realize that there's a massive, once again, a massive protest. Less than 6 months after they forced Ricardo Rossello to resign, now they're asking for Wanda Vasquez and many other top political officials to resign. And the reason this is sad for Puerto Rico and Puerto Ricans is because, before I end this video, I believe that Governor Ricardo Rossello wasn't corrupt. I found absolutely no proof. I found absolutely no news articles. I found absolutely no cases that are either still open against Ricardo Rossello or were being investigated against Ricardo Rossello. I did find members of his cabinet that were being investigated for corruption. So why did Ricardo Rossello, why was he forced to resign? Because I'm going to tell you guys one more time before I end this. From 2004 to 2012, a company known as AES Corporations, Applied Electrical Systems, was dumping radioactive coal ash, millions of pounds of radioactive coal ash throughout 12 out of Puerto Rico's 78 municipalities. By 2019, by 2019, once Ricardo Rossello was able to do something about it, he proposed on March of 2019 Puerto Rico's Green New Deal, which has absolutely nothing to do with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or farting cows, but instead that Puerto Rico's Green New Deal was going to put a ban on coal-fired power plants. And the reason that's important is because coal-fired power plants produce radioactive coal ash. And then you need somewhere to put that radioactive coal ash, and guess where they were dumping it? They were dumping it in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico's underground water supply was found to have had selenium, was found to have had radioactivity, was found to have had cyanide, was found to have had all of these poisonous substances. And when you track the health history of Puerto Rico in the regions where these radioactive coal ash was being dumped, you realize that there's almost a 38 to 42%. Almost an anomaly, a phenomenon of people that are suffering from cancer in these regions. So he puts in the Puerto Rico's Green New Deal, makes a promise that we're going to put a ban on coal-fired power plants, and we're going to transition Puerto Rico from hydroelectric, tapping into the ocean's waves to generate electricity for Puerto Rico, solar power, tapping into the sun's natural power, and wind turbines, since Puerto Rico produces on average 60 miles per hour of wind, and it only takes about 15 miles per hour of wind to power a wind turbine. This seemed like a beautiful plan for Puerto Rico. What ended up happening 3 months after he made that proposition? Since he was going up against one of the biggest, strongest, most powerful companies in Puerto Rico, even though they were poisoning and dropping millions of pounds of radioactive coal ash in Puerto Rico, they paid Ricky Martin. They paid Calle 13. They paid all of these buffoons, all of these idiots, to go out and propagate, utilize their music to convince the people of Puerto Rico that Governor Ricardo Rossello was corrupt, and 1/3 of the entire island believed it. They went out and they forced the resignation of Ricardo Rossello. Now, here's the thing. The thing is that AES Corporations, which is still working today, they hold a monopoly on 20% of Puerto Rico's electrical supply. AES Corporation supplies electricity to 20% of Puerto Rico. They have all the money. They have all the power. So if Ricardo Rossello's Green New Deal were to kick in Puerto Rico, it would have forced AES corporations to lose hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. So now do you understand why it was important for the propagandists in Puerto Rico, for AES corporations, for here's another thing that a lot of people don't know. You see all those earthquakes? 950 earthquakes as reported. And you guys can look this up. I'm not lying about this. 950 earthquakes have struck Puerto Rico in the last 1 month and a half. This is not normal and this is not natural. Many people thought that it was hydrofracking. It's not hydrofracking. You know what it is? In 1960, two companies, American Metal Climax and Cocota Copper, found that there was a deposit of 4 billion pounds of copper in Puerto Rico in an area known as Adjunta, which is tied to Lares, which is tied to Jayuya. And you know what they started doing? By the 1980s, ExxonMobil came into an agreement. It's called the Silent Agreement between Puerto Rico and ExxonMobil. And they gave them 37,000 acres of land near El Yunque rainforest. The only national rainforest in North America is being excavated for copper. It's being excavated for gold. It's being excavated for silver because they lied to the Puerto Rican people and told Puerto Rico that they didn't have no resources. So check this out. So then, now they're extracting all this gold. The government of Puerto Rico came into contract with them to say that they have private ownership of that land. Now the same farmers that they had pushed out of these lands are being pushed out of their lands and not given a cent over the gold, the silver, the copper that is owned by the same farmers and the same property and landowners who are Puerto Ricans and American companies. American Metal Climax is in Puerto Rico taking all of the gold. You don't believe me? You think I'm lying? You think I'm a propagandist? Go online and look up something known as Las Minas de Adjunta. Las Minas de Adjunta. People are hearing explosions in the nighttime. You know why? Because they've gone underground in Puerto Rico. Las Minas de Adjunta, the mines of Adjunta. Look it up. And you realize they found 4 billion. A 4 billion pound copper deposit in Puerto Rico. Then they found silver. Then they found gold. Then they found other precious metals. All within 17 different deposits in Puerto Rico. All located between Lares. Look at the regions. Lares, Jayuya, Adjunta. The same regions where, if you look at where the earthquakes are coming from in Puerto Rico, they are coming from Ponce, Jayuya, Lares, Adjunta. And what is an earthquake? An earthquake is the fracturing of rocks. Does explosion and mining cause earthquakes? You don't have to believe me. Don't believe me. I'm just a man. I'm just a regular man talking to y'all. Go online and look up earthquakes, mining, and you realize that it's already been proven that mining can be and is directly correlated with magnitude 3 earthquakes. And Puerto Rico has experienced more than 450 that are magnitude 2 and below in the past month alone. So why isn't anybody making the connection? Because of the extreme amount of corruption, propaganda that is circulated in Puerto Rico to subvert the beautiful people of Puerto Rico and convert them into a dumbed-down society. They're trying the same thing in America. It's called ideological subversion. It's called the dumbing down of America. It started in the 1920s with the Soviet Union. You don't believe me? Go online, look it up. It's called ideological subversion, and they've been implementing it on America in 4 different stages to ethnically subvert you and restructure your ideological alignments, where now you find conservatives that champion for abortion because you've been subverted into believing in something that under organic circumstances none of you would have believed in, but you've been ideologically conditioned generationally. Same shit is happening in Puerto Rico. So don't think for a second that what's happening in Puerto Rico doesn't affect America. Let me remind you guys that after Ricardo Rossello signed, because he got a chance to sign it before he got forced to resign, signed Puerto Rico's Green New Deal. You know what AES Corporation, the one that was dumping millions of pounds of radioactive coal ash in Puerto Rico, decided to start doing? Now they're exporting their radioactive coal ash from Puerto Rico to Osceola County in Florida, to the state of Georgia. You don't believe me? Go online right now and look up AES Corporations dumping Georgia, Florida. Radioactive coal ash, selenium, cyanide, radioactivity, cancer. And you know why nobody gives a fuck? Because it doesn't benefit their political parties. When it's a social grievance, nobody cares. Because they're more concerned about what their party wants to hear, what's going to benefit the narrative of their party. I speak up on politics. I speak up on social grievances. I speak up on Puerto Rico. I speak up on America because ultimately, nobody pays me for this. Everything that I do is free, and I do it for love of people. Because if I didn't love people or I didn't care what the direction of America's future was, I'd let you guys go ahead and overwhelm yourself in propaganda and lies, because ultimately, how does it affect me? I'm good. I manage a company in the nighttime. I do contracts in the morning time. I have more than enough time to do some political hobbying. I'm good. America has been good to me. America gave me an opportunity to lift my own fucking weight up and drive myself straight out of Spanish Harlem into a fucking college, study engineering, get certificates from the NCCR, get licensed through the APA, and continue on my path towards applied philosophy and such. America has been good to me. Struggle and self-determination is what determines how successful we all become. It is not until we understand that and we begin to identify ourselves as who we truly are and not who our party wants us to be, or who our party wants us to relay ourselves to be, that we will then organically find our way towards the truth. With that being stated, I want everybody to stay safe, stay informed. God bless. La Maga. Let's all make America great again. One topic at a time.